Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you guys here on the 6th, Monday, the May 2024, Monday, the 6th of May. Thank you for tuning in. Now, after I do the markets, which will probably take about 15 minutes, on the tail end of the show, I'm going to tell you guys a story. I was sitting at Subway sandwich shop yesterday having a sandwich, and I was inside my car. I had the door open just a little bit, and you know that thing when you put your key in, the ignition. My key was in the ignition, and it was making that ding, 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 ding sound, and it made me remember a story that happened way back a long time ago. But I'm going to tell you guys what it is after I get done doing the markets. But let's get started and let's find out what's going on in the world today. The Hungarian foreign minister warns that Macron, the leader of France, risks sparking World War III. The Hungarian foreign minister, Peter Szijjártó, has warned that French President Emmanuel Macron's threat to send NATO troops to Ukraine risks sparking World War III. That's a strong statement. He says if NATO members commit ground troops, it will be a direct NATO-Russia confrontation, and it will then be World War III, he said. Let's be clear, he said. If there is a nuclear war, everything and everyone will be lost. If there is a nuclear war, everyone will die and everyone will be destroyed, which no one with any common sense can wish for, said Szijjártó. Says sending Italian soldiers to fight outside the EU borders, following the obsession of some dangerous and desperate European leader like Macron, he says the question, and that's in parentheses, so it means those were his statements. But what's going on out there? France's Macron doesn't rule out troops for Ukraine. French President says in an interview that if Russia wins in Ukraine, there will be no security in Europe, he says. French President Emmanuel Macron has said he has not ruled out sending ground troops to Ukraine if Russia breaks through the Ukrainian front lines. And the government in Kiev made such a request. So Ukraine has requested. It says in an interview with The Economist published on Thursday, Macron reaffirmed his previous statement backing Ukraine in the face of Russian battlefield advances. Quote unquote, this is a quotation. If Russia were to break through the front lines, if there was a Ukrainian request, we would legitimately have to ask ourselves this question, he asked. Another thing he said was, I have a clear strategic objective. Russia cannot win in Ukraine. He says, if Russia wins in Ukraine, there will be no security in Europe, he told The Economist. Who can pretend that Russia will stop there? What security will there be left for other neighboring countries? Moldova, Romania, Poland, Lithuania, and others, he said in a statement. Very dangerous time we're living in, guys. Because it's looking as though Russia's preparing themselves for these things. It says Russian tactical nuclear weapons exercises are meant to deter a NATO intervention in Ukraine. In other words, if they send troops. It says Monday that the Russian General Staff is preparing to carry out drills for practicing in the use of tactical nuclear weapons. This is against NATO's steadfast defender drills, are possible preparations for war with Russia, according to spokeswoman Zakharova. I guess she's a Russian spokesperson. So, Russia advancing into Ukraine, deep into Ukraine, I saw an article yesterday about some of NATO's red lines. It says NATO's put out some red lines. And one of them is if Russia starts to move into western Ukraine, start to head toward western Ukraine, if they start to make some sort of a corridor, I think that's what it said, between there and Belarus, and also anyway, there's red lines being drawn, not just on Russia's side, but on the side of the Allied forces or the NATO forces. Now, the U.S. election is only 6 months away. And you can't make this stuff up, guys. You can't make this stuff up. The Trump-Biden rematch is now a sequel. It says no one asked for, and now no one can look away from it. And I get a kick out of this. They made these like movie things. It says Trump-Biden the sequel. You know, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, here it comes around again, and it's the same thing that 4 years ago. I mean, it's like, what is this, deja vu? Or anyway, moving on, we're going to take a look at the price of silver today. It's up 83 cents. That's a big day for silver at $27.34. Now, here's what I got to tell you guys about silver. I think that silver has now set a new price, kind of like drawing its own new line in the sand. Used to be we saw $15 silver on here. On this channel, I saw $13 silver, and we saw $18 silver. We saw $20 silver. Well, it looks like that somewhere around $25 or $26 now is silver starting to set a floor underneath itself. And we might not never see those prices again, those $18 silver, $15 silver, $20 silver. We might never see that again. The new low price for silver might be more like 25 or 26, if you can get it for that, the spot price. And it looks like it's poised to shoot up above $30 pretty soon. So $27.36 today. We're up 85 cents on the day, which is a big day for silver. That's a nice big one. 3.19% up. Taking a look at gold today, it's up over 1% at $23.25. It's $24.40 up today. That's a nice day for gold. A cryptocurrency today. Bitcoin is holding its own above 60,000 now again, 63,526. I'll tell you about this stuff. This stuff refuses to ever die. And if it lives, it's the strangest thing there ever was, this Bitcoin, you know. When I first heard about it, I knew it was weird stuff, strange stuff, you know, and but back then it was more or less something that people just played with and stuff, and it's I remember my mother telling me about it, you know. This was back before it was even worth anything. And I dismissed it off, and a couple years went by, you know, when she first told me about it. I think it was only like 5 cents a piece or something. And I was like, it's a scam. It's immediately, the first thing I said out of my mouth, that's a scam. That is a Ponzi scheme scam. And I dismissed it. I didn't pay any attention to it whatsoever, and I just kind of like blew it off. And a few years went by. Then I heard about it again, you know. And the second time I heard about it, I started to look into it a little bit. And I said, hey, this is not a scam. That's why it's still here. Well, it's still here. And at $63,000, And it's tenacious. It's like the monetary black hole. It's how do you really conceptualize what a deflationary, something that always is worth more, right? In other words, it's kind of like a collector's item, that they make limited supply of, sort of thing, and it's always going to be worth more. So it makes it a very attractive place for people to put their money, because every 4 years it gets cut in half. They cannot, that computer algorithm that determines Bitcoin, they cannot make more, and they cannot just go out and make another Bitcoin. Yeah, they can, but it'll be worthless, because it's not the original Bitcoin. It's the original Bitcoin, has the original Bitcoin name, has the original Bitcoin algorithm, and it's all set on that one thing that has made itself into money. It's made itself into a hard money. It's a very interesting thing. And if it can win out, in the world, because the way it fragments is extremely unusual. There's 99 million Satoshis in a Bitcoin. But they could fragment the Satoshis and have Satoshis within the Satoshis. And I think that it can reach out to something like 17 decimal points. So when you buy a Bitcoin, you're not buying one unit. Just like when somebody gives you $1, you're not getting one unit, you're getting 100. 100 pennies are in $1. Well, Bitcoin works the same way, except it fragments into much, much smaller pieces and fragments of itself. Very unusual thing. Now, taking a look at the S&P 500 today, it's up 28 points at 5,156. The Dow today is up 45 points at 38,720. Taking a look at our crude oil today, we're up 49 cents at 78.60 for crude oil. And bonds and rates. Now, there's a bit of a story here in these bonds and rates. They've been kind of up and down today and hovering around. There's not much movement in them today. Just 1/10 of 1 basis point has been about all the movement, or 2/10 of a basis point has been all the movement. But we're seeing a bit of a drop down below the 4.5 mark on the U.S. 10. Well, it's right at 4.5 right now in the U.S. 10-year. And the U.S. 30-year is at 4.66. I noticed a little bit of a trend here. I noticed that gold trending upwards when the bond yields are moving down. Now, normally, it's right now we're witnessing volatility in this bond market on the long end of the yield curve, and the volatility has been trending the yields upwards. But there's something going on in all this right now. For the past few days, it started a few days ago, and I'm not exactly sure what it is. I can't put my finger on it yet. But this bond market's so important, we got to find out. And I got to find out what's going on. And it'll make itself manifest what's been going on the last little bit. But there's something happening here, and I'm gonna figure it out. Time is something that can give you answers. If you don't have all the answers right now, a little bit of time go by and you'll get the answers. That's the way things seem to work anyway. We're looking at 5%, 105 on the US dollar index today, and it was dropping, but now it's starting to go back up again. It's at 105.08. So now for that story I was going to tell you guys. So I was sitting in my car yesterday, down there at Subway Sandwich Shop. eating my sandwich. And I had the door kicked open about a half a foot, letting the breeze come in through the door, the half-open door. And sitting there behind the wheel, and I had my key in the ignition, and I could hear this bing, 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 bing sound while I was eating my sandwich. And I got remembering things from way back around 1980, 1979, somewhere around there. Long time ago. Over 40 years ago. And I got remembering how my father, Pop, used to hate those buzzers and bingers and noise things that come out of the dash of the car. They absolutely drove him batty. That little ding, 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 ding when your key's in the ignition, or those, they used to, back in that time, they used to have these things that used to go in the dash. Like if your key's in the ignition or if your lights are on, and they got a little bit carried away with it back in the 1970s and 1980s cars, and they used to have about 2 or 3 of those in the dashboard, along with the ding, 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 or buzz, 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 buzz sound, you know. And they drove my dad batty. Those buzzers. It was one of the things, like, you know how I am with potholes? I hate potholes. He hated buzzers. They drive him crazy. So what he did was he come along and he said to me, he said, I'm going to take them out of your car. And I said, go ahead, take them out. I'd be happy if you take them out. I didn't like them much either, you know. And he had taken them out of all of his cars. He had like 2 cars, and he'd pulled them all. And how he did it was he used to get in there and he would get up underneath the dashboard with a pair of long needle nose pliers, and he'd fish around in there, and he'd grab a hold of the buzzer and he'd yank it out. And they used to be, I think if I remember right, they were a little round thing. They used to plug into a little plug-in thing up in there. And you'd pull them out, they would quit buzzing, you know, or dinging or whatever they were doing to driving him crazy. So what he did was, my grandfather didn't live too far away, and for some reason or another, he borrowed my grandfather's nearly new car that he'd just bought a few months earlier. It was only about 4 months old or something, the car. You know, didn't have many miles on it. And the car was like it would be around 1980 or 1979, long in there. I think it was a Toyota SR5, if I remember right. The car, and it had, it was one of those earlier Toyotas, you know. And it had lots of those dingers and buzzers in it. So my dad got it, and my dad was driving it for a couple days. My grandfather lent the car to him. He was driving it for a few days. I can't remember a reason why now. Maybe my dad's car was busted or something. Something was going on anyway. So he lent my dad his car. So my dad was driving it around, and when we were in town and stuff, you know, my dad was like going crazy over these buzzers, and it had a lot of buzzers in it. Buzz, 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 ding, 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 and buzz, buzz, buzz. And my dad was just freaking out over all this. So one afternoon there, when the car was home, and my mother, I guess she was away shopping or something, my dad hopped out with the pliers. And he says, those buzzers gotta go, to me. I said, yeah, but it's Gramps' car. You're not going to tear his car apart. He said, no, I'm just going to pull those buzzers. He says, he'll thank me for it later. You know? So he got up underneath the dash there, and he was first, and the car was going, and buzz, ding, 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 buzz, 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 and all of a sudden, one less buzz. And then he's up under there a little while, one less buzz, less and less. And finally, in the end, it was left with just the dinger, and he finally found the dinger, and rip, yank, out came the dinger. And the car was quiet, nothing, no sounds. Look at that, he says, look. And he is holding the buzzer up in the tip of the pliers. The buzzer was in it just like it was a trophy, just like he killed an animal or something, and he had it on the end of a stick. Look at that, there's the last one, I got him, you know? So Mom got home, and Dad was all proud. Guess what I did to your dad's car? He said to my mom. She said, what? He said, well, you know those buzzers. And then she knew what was coming right away. She knew. She automatically knew that was what he did. She said, you didn't. She said, yeah, he's holding up the buzzer, I think. And I think if I remember right, he still had it in the end of the pliers. Look. He said, look, come listen. Do you hear anything? And he turned the key and they turned the car on, and there's no sounds anywhere. My mother said, you pulled all the buzzers out of my dad's car. Did you ask him? She said. And my dad, suddenly his pride and all of his being so proud of the job he did on all those buzzers went away. And he said, no, I didn't ask him. And she said, listen, she said, you have to ask first before you touch somebody else's car and do something like that. She said, you get right out there and you put all those buzzers back in the dash. My dad's face dropped. I'll tell you why his face dropped, for one thing. For one thing, he didn't know where half of them went underneath the dash, up underneath there. He just heard them buzzing and grabbed them with the pliers and yanked and not paid any attention. And the second thing is, it's an awful lot harder to put those things back in than it is to yank them out. Because you can yank them out with a long nose and needle nose pliers. There's pliers with a long needle on the end. You know, you can get up there and pull them out. But to put them back in, you got to get your fingers back up in there. So, sure enough, my dad was out there all afternoon. It only took him about 15 minutes to yank them all. But I think I remember right. I think he was out there about 4 hours and cursing and stuff, trying to get them all back in again. Oh, those were simpler times back then. Thank you guys for listening to my show. You guys have a great afternoon. And we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye.